Hello and welcome back to the channel. This one is team selection for game week 7. To start with, we'll have a look at my game week 6 review. It was an absolute disaster. As you can see, game week rank of 8.9 million, which is almost as bad as it gets. 34 points, 2.5 million rank. Now, before game week 6, my rank was 1.2, so I have doubled in rank, which is far from ideal. But last week, I made 4 transfers, so we'll talk about those as I go through it. But Henderson in goal, 1 point. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I expect absolutely nothing from the goalkeeper position. I am just glad that I'm not spending more money on that position. For example, if I had someone like Edison or Raya, then I'd have had an extra million tied up in that position and I wouldn't have got any more points this week. So I'm just glad I'm only spending 4.5 million. I won't be using a transfer on that spot. Unless Henderson gets injured or suspended, I won't change that spot until my next wildcard, I would imagine. So yeah, not much more to say about goalkeeper position. Then we'll go on to Gabriel. Gabriel was someone I bought in this week. I brought him in for Trent. I was a little bit worried about that one because I thought that the fixture for Liverpool was pretty good, but turns out neither Trent nor Gabriel got any points. I'm just glad to have Gabriel in for game week 7. Konza, Villa just seem to not be able to keep any clean sheets this season, apart from in the Champions League, obviously. When they play Bayern Munich, they can keep a clean sheet, but when they play Ipswich, they can't. Fine, whatever. Lewis was a late transfer in, so I used 3 of my 4 free transfers, and then I had 0.1 million in the bank. So I was starting Porro instead of I had Robinson. So Robinson was second on the bench and Porro was starting. We then got a leak that Rico Lewis was going to be starting, so I had the 0.1 million in the bank to go from Anthony Robinson to Rico Lewis. I don't regret the transfer. I'd do the same transfer again. I don't want Robinson long term anyway, and Lewis just seems brilliant for now. He didn't even play in defence, he played in midfield, so I'm happy with the move, to be honest. I'm happy to have Lewis going forward. I guess it would have been better if I didn't make the move last week, but I'd have had Porro's 5 points instead of Lewis's 2 points, but not a big problem, to be honest. Saka, that was a bit of a roller coaster with Saka. He got an assist, then the assist got taken away and 3 bonus points, and then he ended up on 1 bonus point, but I didn't captain him regardless, so 3 points, slightly disappointing. Bruno Fernandes, just ridiculously disappointing. I mean, the -2 wasn't the worst part. The fact that he'd have been banned for 3 games would have been the worst part, because the next 3 aren't bad at all, to be honest. So I'm glad that his ban's been overturned. I probably would have got someone like Brennan Johnson in if his ban was upheld, but now that the ban has been overturned, I will likely be keeping Bruno Fernandes. I still think that he's a good pick. We'll talk about him when I show my team for game week 7, but I'm kind of fine keeping him for now. Morgan Rogers continues to be brilliant value. If you don't have him, then I'd suggest just getting him. He's ridiculously good value for his price. Eze is another frustrating one, if I'm honest. His numbers are just good. He's having a hell of a lot of shots. Granted, not many of these shots are kind of in really, really good positions. He likes to shoot from outside of the box quite a lot, but still, he's having a lot of shots. This week's fixture isn't great, which we'll talk about, but I think I'm just fine holding him. And Bomo was one of the transfers that I used, so I brought him in for Bergval, who was just my 4.5 million midfield option. It was always my plan to bring him in for game week 6, and he has delivered. Again, it was in the first minute, like the week before, slightly weird, and it was all very, very similar goal as well. But yeah, glad to have him in the team. Kai Havertz was my final transfer. I brought him in for Alexander Isak. That transfer worked out well. Havertz could have had so many more points in game week 6, to be honest. He had an XG of somewhere near 2, I think. It was 1.9 or something like that. He had a massive chance saved by Hermansen. He kind of, it was like a volley from about 6 yards out, and Hermansen made a great save. So I didn't expect the goal to come like it did. It was kind of James Justin just kicked the ball onto his leg and it went in, but we take it. It could have been a lot more, but I'm glad to have him in the team. And then Haaland captain was disappointing. Newcastle just kind of clutched up in this game. They'd been awful for 5 game weeks. I'd been talking about how awful they'd been for 5 game weeks because I watched quite a few Newcastle games for some reason, but they'd been so bad. But against City they were good, so is what it is. I think it was the right decision, but yeah, is what it is. The bench, I was always benching Dunk, and glad I did. -1. João Pedro was injured, and Porro got 5 points. But let's look at my Game Week 7 team and my plans going forward. Okay, right, so we've got the defenders and goalkeepers on the screen for my team. As you can see, I've got 1 free transfer, nothing in the bank. I've got Henderson in goal, who has Liverpool at home. About as bad a fixture as it gets. The Liverpool attack is kind of on fire right now, but there is no chance I'm using the transfer. Valdemarson on the bench, he won't play probably, but yeah, Henderson, there's no chance I'm using the transfer. I'm just going to play him. I'm hoping that he doesn't concede too many, and hopefully he gets a few save points in there. So yeah, the maximum I'm expecting is 3, maybe 4 points, but more likely he gets a 0 or a 1. I'm fine with that. Then we have Porro. He comes back into the 11. Brighton away, it's not kind of an ideal fixture, but with Porro, it's more kind of his attacking returns that I have him in the team for. Albeit the defence hasn't been bad for Spurs recently. And actually Porro, since kind of Johnson and Kulusevski are playing on the right side of that attack, Porro hasn't been venturing forward quite as much as he was before. In the first few weeks, he was finding himself in like a number 10 position. We aren't really seeing that anymore, but that can quite easily just change back as quickly as it changed out. So fine with having Porro in the team. Lewis, he's a difficult one. The reason I didn't bring him in earlier is because I didn't want this situation where I'd always be wondering whether I should start him or not. I do now have that conundrum each week. The fixtures are fantastic, so that's not an issue. It's just whether he'll start or not. We're unlikely to get a leak this week because City play at 3 o'clock on the Saturday. They're not the early kickoff. So a leak is unlikely. I will probably start him anyway, given that Konza and Dunk, the other 2 options that I would bench Lewis for, don't have the best fixtures. Tottenham at home for Dunk is pretty bad, so he'd always be last on the bench. Konza with Man United at home isn't as bad, but I do expect Man United to score. Villa haven't kept a clean sheet this season, so I don't really see them starting now against United. But so I'll probably end up just playing Lewis and hope that he starts, hope that he plays in this advanced. Well, I don't think there's a world where he wouldn't play in the kind of more advanced role if he were to start. So yeah, I'll probably just start him regardless. And then Gabriel, Southampton at home. This is one of the 2 or 3 fixtures that I bought him in for. So yeah, I'm hoping that Arsenal managed to keep a clean sheet this week. Having watched Southampton against Bournemouth, having watched Southampton just all season, to be honest, they are bad. So yeah, hoping for a clean sheet there and maybe even a corner goal. So yeah, that's the goalkeeper and defence. Let's move on to the midfield now. Right, the midfield is the same as last week. So from right to left, we have Mbomo, Wolves at home, fantastic fixture. If you don't have him, I would try and get him in. He is an absolutely fantastic value pick right now. He is on penalties, he is playing 90 minutes, he is pretty nailed to start. He has great fixtures, just get him in. Eze, this is an annoying fixture. I don't mind Palace's fixtures in the kind of short to medium term. But this fixture isn't an ideal one, if I'm honest. If João Pedro were to be fit, then it would probably be a toss-up between him and Eze over which one I start on bench. But I'm kind of forced to play Eze at this point, as João Pedro is likely to be out. I don't really like the fixture at all, but like I say, I still think he's a good asset. He is partly on penalties maybe, although I don't really see him taking the next penalty if him and Mateta are both on the pitch when it is won. There is a chance though that Mateta won't be on the pitch when there's a penalty. Eze will most likely play 90 minutes, whereas Mateta's been coming off a little bit earlier, so yeah, we'll see about that. I mean, I don't think I'll transfer him out. Like I was mentioning before, if Bruno's ban was going to be upheld, there was a chance I would have moved to Brennan Johnson. So there is a world where I could do Eze to Brennan Johnson, but I just don't really like selling Eze. I don't think it sounds weird because he's barely got any points, but I still think he's good. The numbers are good. He's having loads of shots. So yeah, I think I'll be keeping him and just playing him through this tough fixture. Morgan Rogers, Man United at home. As I've said for weeks now, the Man United defence isn't good. The Man United attack is okay. The Man United defence just isn't good. It isn't a tough fixture for attackers playing against them. So very happy for Rodgers to play this week. He did get 90 minutes, I believe, in the Champions League against Bayern Munich, but I'm not really sure that means he won't start. I think he'll just continue to keep playing. I'm hoping he will anyway. He seems to just be starting every single game for Villa, so until we see him benched, I'm happy to just play him. Bruno Fernandes, as I mentioned, I would have transferred him out to Brennan Johnson, I think, but now I'm happy to keep him. The fixtures after this week, this week isn't that bad. I mean, Villa haven't kept a clean sheet all season, so it's not the worst fixture, but the fixtures after this week are brilliant, so very happy to keep Fernandes now. Again, a similar situation to Eze. Man United are quite bad, but Bruno Fernandes is performing well. His numbers are good. Well, I say he's performing well. If you're a United fan, maybe you don't think he is performing well, but his underlying numbers are good. He's on penalties. He plays 90 minutes, unless he gets sent off, of course. But he plays 90 minutes. He just is a good asset. So I'm happy to keep him now. Then we have Saka. Southampton at home. There is a very good chance that I put the captaincy on him. At the moment, I've got the vice on him because I have the captaincy on Haaland. If you haven't already, then check out my captaincy video. It is already out, where I've created a model to see who the best captain is each week. And yeah, I won't kind of ruin who is top, but it's very close between Saka and Haaland at the top. So I'm pretty 50-50 on that at the moment. But for now, it's on Haaland and Saka is vice. So let's move on to the forwards now. Okay, now the forwards, no surprise. Haaland, captain, and Havertz with João Pedro on the bench. I think João Pedro is just out. I don't think that he's going to play in this game. If he were potentially fit, then yeah, like I mentioned before, it would be a toss-up between him and Eze, who is benched. But I don't think we'll get kind of a definitive answer that João Pedro will start. So it's probably not worth taking the risk, and I'll probably just bench him. Haaland is obviously going nowhere. He will potentially get the captain's armband. Fulham at home just seems a very, very good fixture. And Havertz, again, I brought him in kind of for 2 or 3 weeks last week. So the Leicester at home fixture, obviously fantastic. And then this Southampton at home fixture, there's a very good chance that I sell him after this week. Spurs fixtures become very, very good from next week onwards. Even this week is pretty good, but they become very good from next week onwards. So my plan was to always do Isak to Havertz last week, have Havertz for 2 weeks, then move Havertz on to Solanke. That plan still stands at the moment, so I will likely be doing Havertz to Solanke next week. It doesn't really... I could keep Havertz for another week. I think it's Bournemouth away for Arsenal next week, so by no means a bad fixture, not as good as Leicester at home, Southampton at home. But yeah, that transfer is likely going to happen for me next week. I do still have my first wildcard to use. So I will need to think about when I use that. At the moment, I'm not really seeing that much benefit in going in. I know that Game Week 8 is quite popular for it. I know that Game Week 10 is quite popular for it. There's some good windows, like Game Week 12 as well. There's some fixture swings, but at the moment, I'm happy to kind of hold it more longer term. Unless we get kind of big changes or I get injuries, suspensions, then I'm happy to kind of pull it at any point. I'm not really fixed into keeping it. I'm happy to pull it if I need to, but at the moment, my thinking is I'll keep it slightly longer term. I've got one free transfer. I don't plan to use that transfer this week. I don't think there is anything that I could do to vastly upgrade my team in the short to medium term. I mean, the obvious ones, as we've mentioned, are Fernandes and Eze out. I'm kind of happy to keep both of those for now, so I plan to roll my transfer unless we get any further news on anything that changes that. Meaning I'll have 2 next week, and like I say, look to get Solanke in. So that's my team for this week. If you like the video, do make sure you hit like, do make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.